In this lesson, we'll learn how to represent objects above and below the cutting plane that your plan is in. Now that we have the two levels side by side, we can start to have a look at some objects that are above and below the cutting planes. Now we've already touched on the subject that we're going to talk about in this lesson when we were busy with the stairs, since this is a typical object that does travel between two levels, and you are going to have certain portions hidden. In other words, we created this dashed line to show what is below the actual upper floor slab, and on the lower level we showed the dot dash line for the stairs that are above that imaginary cutting plane that we are using when we cut through the entire floor plan. Now what I want to talk about are the conventions for showing roofs, and they're going to be very similar to what we've done with this staircase here. So in our case of what is being handled for the roof on the upper level, we want to first of all go and have a look where the outline should be on the sketch design. So I can see that there is a diagonal line that is cutting across, and then it's going to overlap by about 1/2 meter around the edge of this building. So this line is going to be copied from the same angle that we have showing the edge of the balcony. So to get that angle, just start by copying one of those existing lines and moving it into place, just lining up with what you see on the sketch plan. I'm going to turn that image underlay off, since I know that it's much easier for us to see things without that underlay. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to draw a polyline around the outside of the building. I'm going to start from this side, and I'm just going to go corner to corner drawing a polyline. It doesn't even matter yet what layer I'm in. I'm going to change that as we go. So right now I'm going to relayer the line, and I'm going to call this one slabs. We could actually call it roof. It would probably be a more accurate representation. So let's go ahead and create a roof layer, which is going to be O2. So 02 underscore roof. And we can make this gray, that's fine. And let's relayer these lines now. So that will be this line and this line that we just drew. This will be on the roof layer. Everything will be by layer. And first what we want to do is we want to offset this line by 500. And then we want to fillet these two lines together, so that we get that continuous outline. Now comes the part where we show the convention of the line above. So I can start by matching properties with the staircase, but I must remember that the staircase is on a different layer. So even though I will be matching properties, I will then have to either relayer it or go to that roof layer and then just change manually those layer properties. So I don't mind relayering, since that is quicker than manually changing all the properties. I'm going to just click on roof there. And the one thing I want to do is that right now, since this object is quite large, I want to increase that line type. So I'm going to increase it to about 50 so that I can see a clear indication of that dot dash. The next thing I want to do is I want to actually add a label to that line and say this is the line of the roof above. So that's going to help me to see when I look at the plan, so that people are not confused by what that line actually means. So I'm going to use a small text, and I'm going to just type in here line of roof above, and I'm going to rotate that by 30 degrees. So that basically that line together with the annotation will clearly show what is happening directly above. So we could go and copy that text to the other side as well, perhaps to the side without overdoing it, but basically that is going to be the representation. Now the last thing in this lesson that I want to touch upon is what happens when we have a hole that we want to show is a void. So in this case, when we come into the entrance on the lower level, that is over here, we have a staircase leading us up, and then between these two walls, in the section that I'm busy outlining right now on screen, we have a type of bridge that is going to be bridging in between these two parts of the house, the parental suite and then the kids area on the right. So what we need to do on plan is we need to represent a type of icon that is going to show that in fact this area as well as this area is a void. So we do that simply by doing a cross, and then we can also label it as void, and that together will be the representation for that being a open space. In other words, there isn't going to be any floor slab there. The other thing that I need to do, of course, is that right now I don't need these doors to be shown, since those doors are only on the ground level. So I need to update that to include the glazing line that is going to continue. So just while I'm working on this void issue, I'm going to also just mirror and stretch the glass line across, and you can see that in a couple of seconds that is done. So with this line, what we want to do is we want to go very light as well, so it can be color 9. We can make that a dashed line, and we can make that perhaps slightly smaller, and we can type a void. So perhaps for this one we can use a thinner text. We don't need to have such a bold text as we use for the rim annotations. And I'm just going to paste it here and type void in capitals. What you can also do is you can type void below, so all of those annotations do get the message across as to what is happening. So the same thing can now be done to these areas, but this is a little bit more difficult since you don't want to overcrowd it with too many crosses. I'm going to mirror this. You don't really want to confuse the issue with what's happening. So in some cases you may want to do it. In some cases you may just type in the word void instead of actually adding these crosses everywhere, because you could go and add a cross here, but it would be a little bit confusing because you don't really have a nice clean square. So if you feel that that is getting in the way, just type in the word void, again without overdoing it, because you don't want to overcrowd your design. Even if you leave it just here in the center, people will most likely understand that this entire area is voided. So what you could also do is you could add that entire square like so. Then keeping in mind that these stairs are not actually a void. So there is some design decision that you need to make about how you show these voided areas. But the main rule of thumb is that you want to get your big areas swatched out with a big cross. You want to at least see the text, and that will make people understand what's happening below and what's happening above in these areas. So this same rule can now apply. Once we go to the lines here, we should see a roof line cutting across the balcony. So to get that roof line, what we want to do is we want to look at where that roof line is happening on this level. So for example, here, this line that I'm now selecting is the edge of the slab that is connected to the bedroom. So we can go and copy that using the base point, copy it to the left, and this line here will now be able to match properties with this roof line. And I can go and copy this, and instead of calling it line of roof above, it's going to be line of slab above in capitals again. So right there we've just basically summarized what is happening on all those different levels, and we've added all those annotations that show what we are doing above and below. So the same thing here with the bridge, we can add that line and say this is the line of the bridge above, and that will all give us a good idea of what is happening. So there you have it, above and below.